Okay, this is just going to be a quick video of how to configure your BIOS for overclocking. This will be for the ASRock motherboards. I'm using an Z68, but it should also apply to the Z77 motherboards. I'm also using a 2500K Sandy Bridge CPU. You're going to want to go over to the overclock tweaker. These first three settings here towards the top, these are all for auto overclock. This is not something you'll be using if you're doing a manual overclock, so you want to leave these disabled. Your first setting here under CPU configuration is going to be the CPU ratio. By default, this is going to be set to auto. You're going to want to select all cores. That way, all cores within the CPU will hit the same multiplier that you set. Per core is just for people that want to have a different multiplier, per core on the CPU. But for most, you'll be using all core. The next one down, this is going to be your actual multiplier. For my 2500K, it's going to be by default a 33, but you can see here I have it set to 46. So this is where you'll want to type in whichever multiplier you want to stabilize, and next you're going to go down to the host clock override or base clock. This is setting by default is also going to be at 100 megahertz, but you can overclock this if you'd like, but I would not recommend it because when you do so, it will overclock other things on the motherboard. So it's better to just leave this at 100 and only use the multiplier for achieving your overclock. Next is spread spectrum. This setting you're going to want to have disabled. When this setting is enabled and you're stressing your overclock, say in Prime 95, and you have CPU Z opened, you'll notice when this is enabled, your base clock will drop to around 98 megahertz, roughly. When you have it disabled, this will lock your base clock at 100 megahertz. So that way you won't have that issue, so you'll want to keep this disabled before you go and stress your CPU. Intel Speed Step technology. This is what allows the multiplier to change based on the load of the CPU. When the CPU is at idle, this is going to decrease to a 16 multiplier, and then based on the load it will change. So this is something you want to have enabled. Intel Turbo Boost technology, you're going to also want this enabled. This is what works with additional turbo voltage. I'm not going to go over additional turbo voltage right now. I'm going to try that in a different video, but this is also something that you're going to be using when you're trying to stabilize your overclock. Internal PLL overvoltage. This will remain disabled if you're at a 46 multiplier or lower. If you go to a 47 or higher, most likely you're going to have to enable this feature. These next few settings below here, these will be on auto. You'll change these to manual, and then you're going to select your power limit. The max for these settings is 500. I just put them at 300. This is just a power limit that the CPU for the CPU, but it's not going to use this much power. It's just something that you're putting in there so that it doesn't limit your overclock. So you could type in the amount or the number that you want in there, but I just set mine at 300. Right, GT overclocking support. This is for onboard graphics, so if you have a graphics card, this will remain disabled. The next one is your RAM timing configurations. For the first one here, this will be at auto. This is your XMP settings. You're going to want to select XMP profile 1. This will set your RAM up with the correct megahertz, the correct timings, and the correct voltage. This next one is the actual RAM frequency. You shouldn't have to change this when you select XMP profile, but since this is on auto, I just select 1600 megahertz since that's what my RAM is running at. And I just go ahead and set it at that rather than be on auto, but you shouldn't have to select this if you're using the XMP profile. That's mainly for manual. Power saving mode, this is going to remain disabled. You do not need that enabled for overclocking. The next one is CPU core voltage. You're going to have 3 different settings. By default it'll be at auto. I don't recommend overclocking on auto. You want to use either offset mode or fixed mode. Offset mode being the best choice out of the 3. Using offset mode, additional turbo voltage with some of the power saving settings. This is what allows not only your multiplier to decrease, but it allows your voltage to decrease when it's at idle, and then increase when your CPU is at full load. Load line calibration. This is used to prevent V-droop. For the ASRock motherboards, level 1 is going to be the highest. Level 5 is going to be pretty much disabled. Most people set this in the middle. I use level 3, but it's up to you on that one. Since I have a video card again, these 2 settings we won't be using. This is just dealing with onboard graphics, so you can leave those on auto. Again with this, the XMP profile should set my voltage, but I just go ahead and take it off auto and set it to the correct voltage. My RAM runs at 1.5 for the ASRock motherboard. It only shows 1.499, so that's what I have it set to. These next 4 settings below, you should not have to mess with any of these except for possibly the CPU PLL voltage. This will be used again if you're going over like a 47 multiplier or higher, then you might be adjusting this. But if you're lower than that, these can remain on auto. These shouldn't affect your overclock whatsoever. Lastly, these 2 features down below, this is different profiles. So if you have more than one overclock stabilized, then you can save them here and you could switch between the 2. My system is dual booted with Windows and Linux, so I have the 2500K stock settings for when I boot into Linux, and then I have the overclock settings for when I boot into Windows. Lastly, you're going to need to go over to the Advanced tab, and you're going to click CPU Configuration, hit Enter. You're going to want active processor cores, you're going to want that on all. C1E, you're going to need that enabled. That allows your voltage to decrease at idle. The C3 and C6 and C-state support, these are dealing with when your computer goes to sleep. This is power saving settings. So for these, I'd recommend having them disabled. My system doesn't sleep, so there's no reason for me to have these enabled. If you decide you want these enabled, I would select disabling them first, making sure your overclock is prime stable, and then after that going back into BIOS and enabling them, so that way you could see if it affects the stability. And besides that, you'll be all set up. Once these settings are all correct, the only things that you should be adjusting is the multiplier, additional turbo voltage, and offset. Alright, thanks for watching.